This is West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Lynx and ReconAfrica, where we talk about oil and gas news, projects, and developments that you can sink your teeth into. Here are your hosts, Greg and Arvy. Arvy, hello.
Hi, Greg.
Back for another quick little chat.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yes, it has been. I agree. Been too long.
I know.
Life is busy, as we were talking right before we started the show here. It seems like you when you look up and have to be a normal human being after you've done so much traveling, then it's a huge change when you make it at home for a bit of time.
Absolutely, yeah. But as I said before, I'm kind of really enjoying the London weather. It's about 30, 31, and we're not quite equipped for this kind of weather, but we're coping.
No, it's like going outside and taking an instant hot shower.
Exactly, that's exactly what it's like. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Same. It's actually quite nice here in Houston. I mean, this part of the year is kind of the just before turning into absolute miserable heat in August. So this is actually okay. End of August, the 1st of September, it is absolutely miserable.
Yeah, really. Okay.
But yeah. So everyone that's joining the show, welcome to West Africa Weekly. Today is Thursday, July the 22nd, and our wonderful co-host here, Arvy's back with us. We did a few shows without her, and we totally missed her the entire time while she was traveling about. But I'm glad she's made it back for this one here. So yeah, we'll get into the rundown. Yeah. Let's see here. But as a few bits and pieces of news coming from West Africa and some other place in Africa, but some of it's a little bit behind. So you guys would have to. I say behind. It's just like last week a little bit, but there's been a few things pop up yesterday. Not a whole lot of things coming in from yesterday or the beginning of the week, but so we'll cover mainly, probably Wednesday onward from last week. So we'll talk about the oil prices, a little bit on some of the kind of market speculation, what's happening right now. Angola's recent bid round, Woodside kicking off offshore Senegal, AEC, and some of the statements they made last week, and ReconAfrica and their seismic permits for Namibia. So yeah, let's get started. So for the WTI, it looks like it's sitting at $70.66, while our Brent is sitting at $72.66. So close to being level there. But a couple of things to mention here. The API reported a rise of over 800,000 barrels a week ending July 16th. And also showed a climb of 3.3 million barrels for gasoline stock, while distillates fell probably 1.2 million barrels, something like that. But the EIA reported a rise of over 600,000 barrels a weekend in July 16th. So regardless what side of the table you were on, they showed a rise. So the price did show that, or reflect that rise in the stock. So it did drop a bit. But anyway, so yeah, that's that for the oil prices. Arvy, you got anything you want to add to that?
Not really. At the fact that I'm quite excited about this, because the 4% hike and the talks in OPEC are really just a showcase of telling us that there's bigger things to come in 2022. So I'm kind of really I'm watching this space really closely. So let's see what comes about. But a good oil, hike in food prices is always good for us folk, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're in kind of the here U.S. side, kind of a full swing for like summer travel and whatnot, and I think the largest, isn't there some fresh new kind of travel restrictions in Asia here over the last couple of weeks? So that would probably be putting a little damper on demand, but not, but I wouldn't think a whole lot. But
Sure. I'm hoping the same thing happens here in Europe as well. So as I said, we mentioned it before, but we're working on a travel kind of it's a traffic light system here. So you've got green, amber, and red. So the green is where you can come back and travel for free. So I think summertime will be looking pretty good here in Europe as well.
Okay.
So
Same thing kind of in some of the other eastern parts of Europe as well. They're the traffic light, as you said, the traffic light kind of method. So that's yeah. So the traveling in and out of say like the likes of Cyprus and Athens and some places like that, it seems to be really good. If anyone's looking for especially in the Europe side of things, if anybody's looking for a quick destination for a little while, then you can head on into Cyprus. And one thing about Cyprus or Athens and some places in that area right there, once you go into, if you're coming from say like a Dubai, you can use these areas as kind of your 2 weeks of period to clear yourself coming into say like the UK or anywhere like that. So you have you can spend some time in a nice destination before and get cleared up before you can use that as your mandatory quarantine period, right?
sure.
So then you're good, so then you can head on back home and take your vacation before you go back in the country. So
Sure. Well, I'm hoping to actually get to Houston, Greg, to be honest with you, for OTC. Is it in August? I think the dates are in August.
to be quite honest, I need to go back and look.
Yeah. So,
Everything is all jumbled up. It's kind
yeah.
of we don't even. It's like, is it still COVID? Is it not COVID? What's going on? And what's the deal? So
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. But anyway, I'm trying to get to Houston sometime soon. But they've changed the process here in the UK. So anybody traveling from the UK to the US has to get an exception to travel from the US consulate here in London. So it's not just an ESTA you need. You actually need an exception to travel now. So they've put that little bit of strain on COVID people traveling. Have to wait.
even so is this even in effect if you're vaccinated too?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's, and I don't know if it's how long this is actually going to go on, but I've heard in the news that Biden, I think, is having some sort of chat this week or next week to discuss opening Europe and especially folks from the UK traveling in.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me. That is absolutely amazing, considering how how the borders were, kind of, the first 2-3 months and just learning of different things. And I mean, it was still like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Come on in, no problem. And now all of a sudden it's like, you got to have this piece of paper, you got to have this document, you got to have this. I don't know.
No, we're living in some crazy times, Greg.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. It's crazy. All right. So we'll move over here to some of the market news. We'll go to our recent bid round in Angola, which I think was extended. And then Arvy, you were there for the opening of this bid, weren't you?
Yeah, sure I was, and it was my first experience actually being in the actual place of where the presentations are conducted, and the oil minister came and did his speech, and it's a very different kind of insight you get, because a lot of the international players, including the small operators, are all present at these meetings, and you get to have a chat with them to really understand. Okay, it's not just a normal bidding process. There's been so much attention on this bid round. It's been unbelievable, and yeah, it was very exciting to actually be there. And I think what I liked about being in Angola in that meeting in particular is the fact that there's a lot of small and mid-tier new companies coming up. So a lot of the majors, yes, they're still present, Chevron, and the likes, but again, there's a lot of small local operators coming up as well, which was interesting.
Yeah, I have never been, in a place where that kind of atmosphere is. So that's one of the things I haven't done yet. I mean, I plan on making it to one of those, and I mean, even in the U.S., But so it looks like here, I guess last week or so, it looks like they when they got everything together and started getting closed up, it looked like they got interest from like 15 different companies, which submitted like 45 proposals overall, and that was for the amount of blocks they had. That's a lot of interest, because it wasn't like they just had hundreds of blocks ready to go. It was just like they had, I think, was it 9 blocks that they had? But anyway, 15 different companies jumped in there, and it looked like it was a total of about $1 billion worth of investment they're talking about. So it's a lot of interest for such a small amount of blocks, is what I'm saying.
And that's really interesting that you should say that, because you see, when I was there, it's a relatively small country, and the kind of activity that you see going on in the oil and gas industry is quite overwhelming for such a small country. But saying that, I think that this bid round was a bit unique. As I said before, the setup was slightly different, and also we kind of forget that it was, the bid round happened during COVID period as well. So I think
absolutely,
perhaps if it was a normal time and normal circumstances, perhaps there will be even more interest. So yeah, let's watch this space. Lots of stuff happening in Angola.
I mean, of course, they were on shore, but it still shows that there's an extreme amount of interest in what Angola has to offer.
Absolutely,
the world. So
absolutely, yeah.
Our next one here is Woodside with the Sangomar field offshore Senegal. So they're getting ready in there with the Diamond BlackRhino to get kicked off. They announced this last week. So they got the rig mobilized in and ready to start work in the Sangomar field offshore Senegal. But large campaign there, Arvy, 23 wells in total. The Rhino arrived this month, and the Black Hawk is scheduled to arrive mid-2022. So both ships will kind of be working in tandem, trying to get everything taken care of. But so one of the large things about this kind of project here, 23 wells, that's a lot for any award or any announcement. That's a massive amount. It's a massive undertaking. So you're looking 2-3 years of work there, and the amount of supplies that you meet, and the helicopters, the support vessels, just the magnitude of the entire operation is massive. And so, with just one rig in there, and getting started off and getting kicked off, and then bringing the next one in kind of mid-2022 gives them time to kind of get their feet wet and get everything going and get everything sorted out. But yeah, I mean, that if anybody's been involved in one of these 2 rig operations or even 3 rig setups, and they happen a lot in Brazil and a couple of different places in the world, but if anyone's ever been involved in one of those, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's I had the opportunity to work in the the Moho Nord field with Total offshore Congo, and there were multiple different operations and vessels in that field while we were there operating, as well as another I think it was 2 more vessels in there at the same time as we were. And there was never a day that went by that there didn't seem like there was we always seemed like we needed something, whether we needed a helicopter or whether we needed support vessels, or everything was scheduled and everything was lined up. There always seemed to be like that one thing that you needed, right? These operations are massive.
And I think, really, Greg, I think it's, because you actually work on the rigs. I think having your level of experience, you understand exactly the complexities of these kind of contracts. And it's really, okay, we talk about it on a show for a couple of minutes, but when you look at the kind of manpower that has to go in these undertakings, it's actually quite overwhelming.
This field is the equivalent of any large oil and gas field in the world. And what I'm saying is that the time and the investment that's going into it, with now Woodside owning the full invest. So if anyone doesn't know, I think it was at the beginning of last week, I think Woodside bought all of FAR's interest in the Sangomar project now. So Woodside's got the entire project underneath them. So again, that's a large undertaking, and coming up from kind of the rig side, to the kind of the shore base kind of management role. It does give you a bit of perspective on how busy the guys get offshore and how busy the team is offshore. That's one of the perspectives that you do pick up along the way. They just don't have a lot of time in their day for multiple conversations and meetings and things like that. It's either they're, one of the things that I've heavily practiced over my career was just straight boots on deck time with the crews. And so that was, one of my requirements was, that the supervisors were, spend a lot of time doing face-to-face conversations with the crews. This way they didn't get kind of wrapped into the meeting after meeting after meeting and things like this, that they block themselves off some time just to be part of the crew. And so that's it's really important that they stay connected like that, especially in a large operation like this.
Sure, I agree.
And the next thing, and Arvy, you may have a bit more insight here about this one than I do. I was interested in, I know the Energy Chamber made some comments last week, but you're actually there in London where the conference was. So, I mean, yeah. So the thing here is they moved the conference to what was it? I'd have to let me see here. They didn't participate in Dubai with it because let's see, the AEC is taking a principal position in refusing to attend Africa Oil Week in Dubai because they disagree with the London-based narrative that African oil and gas investment must end. So I put out a piece, I guess, a couple of weeks ago on Exxon and engine number one. This was before the last round of board of directors basically got voted off. But and my focus was on Senegal, right? And how much work is going into Senegal, and the focus on we know that there's money to be made, and the government's making money out of it, the operators making money out of it, but let's put the revenue and money to the side here and think about the poverty levels and all of the other things that come from these large projects and the revenue that comes back into the country, just the jobs that are created, and the life that you can give someone, at least if it's another 2-3 years worth of savings into their account. So it's half of it was over half. I think it was 60% of Senegal is still in the dark with no power. So how do we turn our back on a resource like that? It just doesn't. It is never set well to me. So what do you think? You're kind of sitting between both worlds there. So
I think as I said before, Greg, I'm kind of like, I have the same opinion as you. I think we, this statement of us going into a country and on any oil and gas work, we know the kind of revenue and what it does for the locals outside of the oil and gas work. So this comment about boycotting you, and I think really, if I'm honest with you, I read quite a lot of into this article in particular because it was such a bold statement by AEC.
And, absolutely.
And as I said before, I know some of the members there, so I can understand why they made that statement. But equally, the decision was made to change the event from being held in South Africa, I believe, and then being assigned to some venue in Dubai. And I think that was a big issue: is that why would you take something that's called Africa Energy Week or whatever you want to call it and move it? And I think for whatever reason, it could be a
exactly.
It could be a safety issue. It could be a political issue. We don't quite know. But I think it's really what I love about this statement, if I'm quite honest with you, it's got people talking. Just to come out and make such a bold statement, it's got a lot of people thinking, actually, what are we doing? Do we do this on a normal basis? Are the boys in London here running quite a lot of what goes on in Africa? So all these kind of conversations have been had right now. And I think it's only a good thing, because from my understanding, I think because of the issues happening right now in South Africa, the political issues, it could be the possibility that the event organizers thought, actually, for the safety and protocol for all the VIPs we've got coming in, let's change the venue, let's change the location. So again, we've got to be very careful as to what we think is real news and what's really going on.
I agree. I mean, but one of the things is it wasn't like they just announced that the conference was going to be there and then bam, it was going to be like the next week, right?
Yeah.
So COVID's been around for over a year and a half, or going on now, and we have a really good grasp on how we manage large scale events.
Sure.
I mean, just as an example, Dana White and the UFC did a full event in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
MMA Fight Island, and they rented a whole island.
Wow.
And had it secluded, and everyone was COVID tested before they could even be transported to the island. So, I mean, it's not like world events can't take place, but moving this out of Africa and moving it somewhere else, it was just I disagreed with it. But I mean, again, you're right. You don't know kind of what the political motive is behind that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes, I mean, when I first read the article, I was like you, and I was like, absolutely, I agree with you. But then I'm thinking, hold on a minute. You just don't take an event that's going to happen a whole week, thousands of people attending, and move it. There's got to be something else behind it. So let's, it'll be interesting, actually. Let's see how this plays out closer to the time.
Yeah. Again, I was kind of like, it's Africa. Let's see, Africa Energy Week is going to be held in Dubai. Senegal. No, it kind of didn't ring with me from the political perspective. But you put a good twist on it there. So that's, I'm all about safety and coming from an aspect of, not endangering someone's life over a petroleum conference. But again, it's we do know that these conferences, there's a lot of time that goes into it. There's a lot of investment that goes into it. There's a lot of, actually, whenever you have these and some different, there's a lot of jobs created out of it as well. So, I mean, it's not a small undertaking just to snatch it up and move it somewhere else. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you can imagine you're right. And we didn't even touch the topic about the amount of investment and money involved. So I don't think this decision would have been taken lightly anyway.
Agreed. All right, we chatted about ReconAfrica and Namibia quite a bit while we were on our month hiatus there without a show air, and I was gone. Arvy was gone, so it's kind of hard to do these. But ReconAfrica and NAMCOR was granted seismic permit for Namibias Kavango basin. So Arvy, they drilled the first well, found some good show, and they drilled the second well. Found some good show. So they've now decided to go for a larger seismic permit. And so they have proven that they have some hydrocarbon structure there, so this would be an entirely new field for Namibia. We talked about it, I guess, multiple times, especially when they first got kicked off. I think we maybe missed the second well. I mean, we published the news from Recon on the fine for the second well, but this here for the permit shows Arvy shows that Namibia is wanting to go further with the investment. So
I'm really, when we first started talking about Recon, I'm really quite impressed with what they've done in a short space of time, Greg, and I remember
in the middle of COVID.
Exactly. And I remember we started talking about them, and I think they just initially had got their permits and got their approvals when we first started talking about them.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good investment for Namibia because it's a relatively small country, and I think that and the reason I think, as I remember, we started talking about them because it was a local content element. They have a large local content quota presence in country. So I'm quite impressed with what Recon are doing. I think it shows you what a small company can do. What a company can do in such a small space of time in quite a relatively dense country as well. It's, as much as it's got wonderful landscape, it's a big undertaking for a small country as well.
No, absolutely. The thing. So if people are not familiar with kind of the landscape there, so where these guys are drilling at, it's not one of those setups to where you can just flatbed in equipment, and these are all rough terrains, or they're really distant locations from any kind of super city or architecture. They're just way out, basically in the middle of nowhere. So all the supplies that they get, are weeks out. All of their people stay right there on location throughout the whole duration of the well. So this is not an easy. If anybody's ever looked at the kind of like where these guys are at between Namibia and Angola, that is in the middle of nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. That's not on the coast. That's not by a large city. So if you there's the set up with, a lot of times these rigs, or if they're not truck-based rigs, they're actually brought in by helicopter, and in large sections, in large modules. They bring them in via the birds. But these are not easy operations to do. That is absolutely for sure.
Yeah, and it's like you said, Greg, it's a real hardship location. And for Namibia to make such a big investment right now, I think it tells you that they're into local content development as well.
I'm just thinking about the amount of Mozzie spray that you'd have to have out there.
Exactly.
Just the idea of being in the jungle drilling with mosquitoes. There's nothing about that. There's nothing exciting about that for me.
Absolutely not.
So I'm glad these guys are doing a good job. The NAMCOR is the Namibian government entity that's working with ReconAfrica. So it's good that they got backings there. So hopefully they get their wings spread out there and get their new seismic data, and they can keep doing some more work there in country.
Yeah, so that'd be really good. I'm excited about watching a couple of projects, and that's one of them. Yeah.
So that kind of brings us. It was kind of short this week, but maybe we'll be back next week. Depends on how our lives and our world's going. But let's see if there's any questions, comments. So there's one. Let's see. So Alyssa, hey Alyssa, good morning. Yeah, it's been a while. Myself and Arvy kind of been around the world there, but yeah. So you got back from Nigeria last month. Good conference in Abuja and International Petroleum Summit, and traveling was a challenge with COVID. Absolutely. Anybody that hasn't done any traveling, if you don't have to travel, I would say just don't travel. But if you have to move around for work, or you want to take that vacation and some time, then it's so important to look at the country's websites now. So it's so important to look at it. It's so important to look at the airlines and different things that are coming up, because people, ladies and gentlemen, this still changes every day. There's places that change the restrictions in country 2 to 3 times in 1 week. So it's amazing at the amount of management that's going into this, especially on the ground in these different airports and stuff.
Sure. I mean, we get an update here. I mean, the list in the UK changes every Thursday. The government issue an update to the list. But so you don't quite know. So if you're going to book something, it could go from a different list to another list immediately. So you don't quite know.
And the price, it goes up and down based on
based on what the airlines think it's going to be.
I did find out though, Arvy, that a flight mile is basically worthless these days.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, if you've got any kind of mileage program,
Yeah.
people are just not using it. I mean, it's just some there's still some decent ones out there, but I found that probably 80 to 90% of the airlines, the miles are just not.
Yeah.
The programs are just not, I guess, up to speed from COVID yet. So
Yeah, I think you're right. But I know there's a huge push here for a lot of the operators, the airlines here in the UK to really get people traveling. So they've got some really good deals on. But again, it's very difficult because the general public don't actually know what is going on. So they don't want to, be booking these flights and taking time off work, etc., if it could possibly change in a day. So there's a lot of issues.
I did speak with I've got a friend of mine that does do these holidays and these travel bookings, and one of the things that kind of is driving the their kind of industry in the area that their vertical they're in is they're booking vacations 2 to 3 years out right now. Because everyone's like, okay, well, it'll be over by this time, and so there's a lot of money. Forward-looking money and forward-looking travel being planned already, right?
You're absolutely right. But I'm hoping that if it's forward-looking planning, you'd still get a good deal, because
there's great deals. There's talking about even from so when the vaccine first started coming around in Dubai, I think you could actually go on Dubai in a vacation and get your vaccine at the same time. So yeah, and so I mean, even from even here, locally in the Bahamas, I think it's only like a couple $100 to get down there. So it's not expensive, but it's the planning that goes into it.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean it's and before, it's just getting a little bit better now, but before the quarantine just made it where it wasn't, it was just no way you could do it.
Yeah.
You go in there with your family and spend 10 days or however long in a hotel. Well, there's your vacation in the hotel. It just doesn't work, does it?
No, you're absolutely right. But I'm looking, as I said before, I'm just waiting. Hopefully I need to start traveling end of August, beginning of September again. I need to get to Houston, as well as do some traveling in Europe. But I'm just going to play it by ear, really see what happens. I'm not going to make any commitments just yet.
Yeah. I think another couple of months we'll have a bit better insight. Hopefully so from this side, wish you the best of luck, and I hope you get to make it over here sooner or later.
Absolutely. Hopefully.
Looks like that's all our, let's see, maybe one more here. Yeah, so that's all of our questions or comments that we have, other than we've had people in from Algeria, Nigeria, Ecuador, Pakistan, Ghana, the Ukraine, India. Let's see who else we have. Indonesia. Yeah, it was a good round. That was a good roundhouse today. So that's all for us this week. Although we've been off for a bit, we'll try to get in, like we said, a few more shows. But for anyone out there, we also, all of our shows also go on podcast too. So West Africa Weekly is on everywhere that you get your podcasts. So whether you get them on iTunes, whether you get them on Stitcher, wherever you get them at, all the shows are there too. And so we've got between Overtime and West Africa Weekly, we're up to right at 1,000 downloads between both. So the podcasts are getting listened to. So that's fantastic. We just got to keep putting the content out there when Arvy and I is not traveling around the world. So
yeah, we'll get to some sort of stable structure soon. Don't worry about it, Greg. We'll make it happen, Greg.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all from myself, and it was wonderful catching up with you again this week, Arvy, and hopefully we can do it again here soon.
Absolutely. Speak to you soon, Greg.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been watching West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Lynx and ReconAfrica. Your hosts have been Greg and Arvy. For sponsorship opportunities, send us an email at info@reconlinks.com. Tune in next Thursday at 8 a.m. CST for another live episode.